Dead no more. Patient ZER0 Chapter 27 T's long-lost dad too. T and I went back to the conference room as the three of them ascended the ladder. Since Joshua has received his abilities, it's almost like there is a permanent mental link between the two of us, like the one I and M share. I could hear their entire conversation and shared it with T. Look Jojo, I more than most know what it's like starting a new family per se. Said Joshua. Even without reading your mind, I know you think this is messed up. But why does it have to be messed up? Asked T2. Why can't we be a family? Why? Because we don't know him. And he sure as hell doesn't know us, said Jojo. He's not our father. Jojo, look at it from his perspective. In addition to your shared genetic makeup, there is also a possibility of a cognitive alignment. Imagine if you found out you had another genetic sibling in the ether besides T2, a tank. Asked Joshua. Wouldn't you want to gather more innocuous data concerning his origins? What the fuck did you just say? Asked Jojo. Yeah Joe, it's too late for him to know his brother, said T2. But he can get to know him through us. If you'll let him. Joshua breathed deeply this time while trying to rein in his intellect. Jojo, if you give him a chance, you will see that Uncle T is one of the coolest people you'll ever meet, said Joshua. He has this way of making a quark seem like a quark. Man, if you don't talk plainly, I'm gonna kick your ass. That is ask you to speak plainly again, said Jojo as he caught himself. I'm sorry, said Joshua. I'm still not quite used to limiting my vocabulary. But Uncle T has never changed. Not even when he emerged from the chamber. Just give him a chance. You'll see, you won't be sorry. Besides, he doesn't make me feel like a freak. And if he's our uncle, then so is Uncle Marv, said T2 slyly. You might even be able to get him to take you as a personal student like he does Joshua. Uncle Marv, pondered Jojo. I guess that would make us cousins, like we are with Eli Joshua. Affirmative, assured Joshua. You might even be able to get moved up on your injection timetable because of the familiar connection. Fuck it, said Jojo. What could it hurt? You can never have too much family. You'll see Joe, you won't be sorry, said T2. He's everything we wanted Dad to be. We'll see, Tank, said Jojo. Just don't be disappointed if I'm not slobbing all over him like you are. The three of them stayed topside for a while talking about asking permission to install a basketball rim at the armory, girls, lifting weights, girls, what kind of abilities Jojo might get in girls. T2 mentioned that there was a good probability that he would never find anyone due to his freakish size. Jojo teased that it wouldn't be because of his size, but because of his stinky feet. It was at that moment that I realized these were just kids and this new world was forcing them to be adults much too soon. Let's head back in, said Joshua. I'm sure your genetic familiarity and proximity to that of Uncle T will be a prioritized subject. Man, you're a uber nerd, laughed Jojo. I mean, I thought you were square before, but now. Keep casting aspersions in my vicinity and I'll share with everyone the probability of you losing your virginity, plus or minus 0.3%, joked Joshua. I think sometime in August of 2042. The three of them laughed. I don't get it, said T2. Why would he wait so long to engage in coitus? Joshua burst out in laughter, because he won't have any choice. The three of them made their way back to the conference room. T stood there as they entered the door. Jojo looked at T2, Joshua and then me. He slowly walked over and gave T a hug. T2 ran over and hugged them both, lifting them off of their feet. I love you Jojo and T2, said T. Why does everyone keep calling Tank, T2? Asked Jojo. Is it some sort of code name? Well, answered T, because technically he is Torrin Charleston Johnson too and I'm Torrin Charleston Johnson. That's a bit of a mouthful, so T2 it is. Will I get a cool nickname too? Asked Jojo. You already have a kick-ass nickname, Joseph Austin Johnson Jr., said T, but if you prefer, how about J2? Nah, you're right. Jojo is kick-ass, said Jojo. Well, if y'all are ready, we can get this show on the road, said T. I do have a question Uncle T, began Jojo. When will I get my injection? T looked at me as he shot me a thought. You know, he has the right to know when. He's family, why are we waiting? Him, Jamie and Naomi can go one after the other. Really? Interjected Joshua on our mental channel. Jamie is really anxious to receive the serum. You both know this will reduce our reserve by 3 and we still have Billy to consider. I projected to them. Well, my baby will be the last one for me, thought T. And Billy will be my last one, when he's of age of course, thought Joshua. Hello. Earth to the super friends, yelled Jojo. Is anyone going to answer me? Sorry Joe squared, said T, you'll see when you receive your injection how easy it is to get caught up in these psychic conversations. Does that mean? Began Jojo. Yes, it does, I interjected. I'll talk to Eli about prepping the lab now. Oh, hell yeah, shouted Jojo. Besides Joshua, and T2 of course, Jojo is the first teen to receive the treatment. Hopefully the increased mental acuity will stave off some of the angst and bravado cognizant in his id and will allow wisdom to course correct his intentions. Damn, now I'm thinking this way too. Eli prepped the lab and got everything ready for Jojo's injection. Eli and Joshua entered the chamber like they did so many times before and they administered the injection. The 7 days came and went, but there was little change in Jojo. He received the now common addition to his height and mass and you could tell that his neurons were firing at an accelerated rate. But when I peered closer, I noticed that Jojo's cells were in a constant state of flux. As T2 approached the containment unit, Jojo's mass gradually began to increase, but stopped at approximately 10% of his respective body mass. The same thing happened when Joshua approached, approximate 10% of Jojo's neurons began to fire at a faster pace, but his mass returned to what it was previously. It's clear to me Jojo has become a copycat just like Joshua, also on a 10% scale. It looks as if he can duplicate 10% of the abilities of those in close proximity for a yet ascertained amount of time, but can only maintain one ability at a time. It wasn't until T approached the chamber that things started going wrong. As T approached, Jojo began to seize. I mentally shouted, "Get back!" As Jojo was unprepared to unconsciously absorb T's antithesis ability. He fared no better when I approached the chamber as his body temperature spiked and he fell into a stasis-like unconsciousness. I theorized while unconscious, Jojo could not metabolize the self-replication of my cells, or the self-deprecation of T's cells. As he woke from his stasis, you could now see the change in him. It would take time for him to get a handle on this new and strange ability. We decided to wait to administer Jamie's and Naomi's injections tomorrow, as I was curious about Jojo and his ability. Eli and I ran through some tests and my hypothesis was correct. As we exposed Jojo to those who had taken the dosage before him, just like we did with Joshua, he acquired roughly 10% of their ability, but try as he might he could not copy mine, M's or T's much like Joshua. We began to refer to his ability as copycat. I can see that each time Jojo uses his ability, an imprint is left on his cellular structure that indicates a possibility of growth in this ability. After the testing, Jojo approached both T and I. You could tell he was wrestling with a conundrum. Doc, Uncle T, how do I vocalize my intention without implementing antisocial psychological trauma on either of you? He asked. That's my nephew, said T proudly. You plainly ask, I responded. I think all present have evolved beyond hurt feelings. Also, you have to remember. It's think, consider, think again and then speak. I apologize. I will endeavor to do better, he said. I have a request to make but I don't want to offend either of you. Spit it out Jojo, said T, anything that is within my power is yours. Well, that's just it. It's not within your power, he responded. I have done some serious calculations and have pondered that I need better control and stability. Go on, I said. Well, what do you two think of me asking Sensei Leon of making me his apprentice? He asked. I could tell that Jojo's injection has also caused a maturity and a growth in wisdom as he was now thinking about possibilities and causalities in relation to current situations. That would be up to Leon, I countered. But if you were just as earnest with him as you were with us, I can't see why he would deny you. But know this, he will work you in hard. I look forward to the challenge, said Jojo. We walked Jojo to Leon's dojo and explained Jojo's desires. Leon had a couple of questions for him. Jojo, what happens when an irresistible force meets an immovable object? He asked. Jojo thought for a second and then responded, we know that a body continues at rest or in uniform motion along a straight line unless it is acted upon by a force. We also know a body acted upon by a steady force suffers constant acceleration. And we can conclude that action and reaction are equal and opposite. So, to answer your query, nothing happens. T beamed with pride over Jojo's careful consideration in his answering of the question. However, continued Jojo, Newton did not have the data or foresight necessary to foresee perpetual motion or the ability to continuously increase mass. Therefore, we will have to revisit this matter once more data has been accumulated. Leon nodded in agreement. My second question is why me? Leon asked. No offense to Doc as your sensei Master Leon, but one must crawl, then walk and then run, he stated. I believe while Joshua is an excellent teacher, it is time to part ways and I do not believe I am yet ready to learn from a master's master. I will accept you as an apprentice, stated Leon. As T and I turned to leave, the two began to shift their densities as Jojo struggled to keep pace with Leon. It's funny, because I was able to keep pace with him with each step I took as we walked away from the dojo. I theorized that with concerted effort and practice, each ability has a potential for growth and perfection. I am reluctant to think what that means for me. Through sheer will, I have already begun to duplicate the abilities of the others with very little practice or effort. That is all except T's. The only one I've shared this with is M, who also, to a degree, has shown signs of ability duplication such as density control and computational analysis. And while we were testing my newfound abilities, we discovered a new one that has yet to manifest itself in anyone else. The day arrived and we were now ready to proceed with Jamie's injection. Jamie was not just nervous, but downright scared. Joshua was able to dissuade her anxiety and provide a level of comfort to her. Eli administered the serum and Jamie began to grow. Originally 4 feet 11 inches tall and approximately 94 pounds, Jamie topped out at 5 feet 11 inches and 182 pounds. All muscle. The days passed uneventfully, until day 7. On the 7th day Jamie's gurney began to shake. Everyone assumed it was due to her body convulsing, but I could see that Jamie was displaying my new undiscovered power. The gurney continued to shake as Joshua reached out to Jamie with his mind in an attempt to settle her. It was then that it happened, as Joshua began to levitate off of the floor. First forward towards the door and then away and then towards again. Joshua was shocked at first, but quickly deduced it was his connection to Jamie and she was the cause of his flight. Small items in the chamber began to levitate and move in a swirling pattern. Faster and faster they moved. Eli was beginning to panic as he thought the items would damage the chamber due to the sheer velocity in which they were moving. I had to intervene. I slowly and gently reached out with my mind and attached my thoughts to each item. First to slow them down, then to place them in their proper places. I then reached out to Joshua and he knew instantly that it was me. He shook his head and mentally forced himself downward. Joshua gently touched down on the floor and Jamie stopped her tortuous flailing. Jamie stirred as Joshua approached the door. The door slowly crept open as Jamie's mind willed it to do so. Joshua slowly entered the chamber and approached Jamie. He kneeled down beside her as she laid on the gurney. He held her hand and that seemed to ease her mind. She slowly opened her eyes and smiled at Joshua. I love you, she whispered. A tear ran down Joshua's cheek as this was the first time either of them had uttered the phrase. I love you too, whispered Joshua, as he clutched her close to his chest. Joshua scooped up Jamie in his arms and turned towards me with his head resting against hers. I'm going to take her to get some rest, he projected to me. But due to their elevated heart levels, pheromones and hormonal activity I knew rest was the last thing that was going to happen. Just remember son, in everything you do, always be safe. I responded psychically. I could feel Joshua blush, but I could also sense that he didn't care. His love for Jamie outweighed his embarrassment he felt of me knowing his intentions. Forget becoming, approaching or inferring, my son is now a man in every sense of the word. Not because of a sexual appetite, but because of the maturity that comes along with it and the responsibility that oversees it. I have to admit, I smiled a little. Joshua levitated out of the chamber with Jamie in his arms. They landed near Eli and walked out of the lab. Doc, what the hell just happened? Asked a stunned Eli. I think I know what just happened, or at least I hope I know. Eli's mind raced with the possibilities. He knew what his mind would not allow him to fully understand. Why is it so difficult to believe? I asked. Over the last few years, the dead have risen, a person has become immortal and these abilities have sprung from seemingly nowhere. But they just flew. He shouted. Come on. It's not as uncommon as you would think, I said as I levitated a pencil from his lab coat. You too, Doc, he yelled. Yes, Eli. I not only have this ability, but can pretty much duplicate the abilities of all the others with ease. All, that is, except T's, I stated. Question, Doc, why would you keep this secret from everyone else, when you know your track record with secrets? Asked Eli earnestly. It's not necessarily a secret as much as it is a period of discovery for me, I said. I'm still not certain what the totality of my share of these gifts include. It would be irresponsible of me to announce a new gift every time I figured something out without yet having a handle on it. It begs the question, what more are we in for? Said Eli. From the 50 doses we began with, 1 from mine and Tank's 10 for Jojo, 2 from yours and M's 10 for Joshua and Jamie, and 5 from the council's 30 for Fred, Gerald, Leon, Andre and T. We have a total of 42 doses left. This serum has to be guarded in the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic, I warned. Speaking of the serum, when are you taking your injection? I'm thinking of doing it in the very near future along with the girls, Eli said. I'm anxious to see what ability I get. It all seems so random. Really? I responded. To me, the ability assignments have been totally predictable. Think about how they unfolded. A mechanic who became more inventive, a hunter who became bestial, an immobile martial artist with density control, a guy who thinks he's invisible to the woman he cares about, a teen who emulates everything I do, but doesn't think he quite measures up, another teen who is a whirlwind of emotions and thoughts, a third teen who tries to emulate everyone because he's not sure of his place in the world, and a guy who thinks of himself as my polar opposite. Everyone's abilities have either taken on the traits of their personality or their current emotional state. Gee doc, I never thought of it that way, said Eli. I guess I'm not much for the psychological and emotional sciences. Well, in lieu of a therapist, I'll continue to talk to you, I said. Eli, M is the only other person who knows this. Like Joshua, I and M can duplicate everyone else's ability but to a greater scale. I'm theorizing that it is the presence of my cells that allow the replication of abilities in the three of us. As far as Jojo, I believe it is because he shares DNA with T2 that allows him a similar ability. But that would mean, started Eli. Yes, that would mean that there is a distinct possibility that due to his age and not yet hitting puberty, T2's abilities have not yet fully matured, I said. It is not out of the realm of possibility that he will acquire some if not all of the abilities that M and I share.